So, after Venezuela, what's next? No, seriously, that's not a rhetorical question anymore. Once you cross a certain line, once you demonstrate that you can remove a government by force, ignore international outrage, and face no meaningful consequences, the question stops being,
should we? Why not?
and lately, it's floating back into the conversation. Quietly, awkwardly, almost absurdly. Greenland. Yes, that Greenland. The frozen landmass most people associate with ice, polar bears, and being vaguely somewhere near Iceland, the place you last thought about during a geography quiz, or when someone mentioned climate change. Except now, Greenland is back in the spotlight, and not because of tourism. After rehearsals in Venezuela, because that's what it looks like when a superpower tests how far it can go. The next target being whispered about is Greenland.
Increasingly tough rhetoric over the future of Greenland, a semi-autonomous region of Denmark. Tonight, the White House said utilizing the US military in furtherance of the goal of acquiring the territory is always an option. Bravado or a genuine threat? Might the US military attempt to seize by force land belonging to a fellow NATO country?
And before you laugh, remember, this isn't even the first time the idea has been floated. Back in his previous term, Donald Trump openly suggested buying Greenland. People laughed. Memes were made. Late-night hosts had a field day. But here's the thing about power. It doesn't joke. It probes. And when jokes stop being funny, they start becoming signals. Greenland today sits at the intersection of three things empires care deeply about: location, resources, and weakness. Greenland is not a NATO member on its own, but Denmark is, and Greenland is covered under Denmark's NATO umbrella. So on paper, Greenland is protected. On paper. But paper has a terrible track record against aircraft carriers. Greenland's real value lies beneath the ice, and above it, under the ice, rare earth minerals, uranium, oil, gas. Above it, geography. Greenland sits between North America and Europe. It controls access to the Arctic. It overlooks emerging shipping routes that climate change is rapidly opening up. Whoever dominates Greenland doesn't just gain territory. They gain leverage. This is why the US already has a military presence there. Thule Air Base, now renamed Pituffik Space Base, has been operational for decades. So let's be clear, the United States is already there. Which means the leap from presence to control is smaller than people like to admit. Now imagine this scenario. After Venezuela, the message is clear. International outrage is manageable. The UN issues statements. Europe expresses concern. Now, how could this actually go if the US decided to take Greenland by force? First, and this is important, it wouldn't look like an invasion in the traditional sense. No beaches stormed, no tanks rolling through Nuuk. It would look administrative, surgical, legal sounding. Step 1, pressure Denmark. Economic pressure, diplomatic pressure, security pressure, public accusations that Denmark is failing its NATO responsibilities, quiet suggestions that Greenland is exposed to foreign influence, loud statements about shared security interests. Denmark is a small country, wealthy, stable, respected, but small. It does not have the military capacity to resist the United States in any meaningful way, and Washington knows this. Step 2, internal Greenlandic politics. Support for independence movements, promises of investment, whispers of prosperity. If Greenland were independent, imagine the opportunities. If Greenland partnered directly with the US, This is where satire turns uncomfortable, because this playbook is old. Empires don't always conquer. Sometimes they convince. And if persuasion fails, well, that's where Venezuela becomes relevant. Because once force has been used openly and normalized, the psychological barrier is gone. If the US framed Greenland as an emergency, Arctic security, Chinese threat, Russian submarines, intervention could be presented not as conquest, but as protection. Temporary, necessary, regrettable. Those are the three most dangerous words in geopolitics. How would Denmark respond? Officially, outrage. Privately, panic. Denmark would appeal to the EU, to NATO, to international law, and all of them would nod gravely, and then look at Washington. Because here's the problem. The EU is powerful economically, but militarily fragmented. NATO is strong, but politically constrained, and both rely heavily on the United States. This is the uncomfortable paradox at the heart of Western alliances. The US is both the shield and the biggest risk to the rules. So, what happens next? If Greenland becomes the next test case, the implications go far beyond the Arctic. Because once borders become flexible for one power, they become flexible for all. Russia will watch. China will watch. Regional powers will take notes. And the lesson won't be subtle. International law is aspirational. Force is operational. That doesn't mean chaos. It means hierarchy. A world where power is acknowledged again, openly, unapologetically, and institutions exist mainly to soften the edges. This isn't a return to empire. It's the admission that empire never left. It just learned how to smile on camera.